is Eugenia, the woman who taught me how to listen. Eugenia Mapendo came to the United States when she was 15, in a group of refugees from Rwanda seeking asylum in the United States. Eugenia, when I first met her, I knew it was the first time she was telling her story, because once she started, she didn't stop for 3 hours. I had asked her this question: do you feel at home here in Trenton, or do you miss your home? And she said this.
I born in Congo. I was a refugee and I was like separate with my family. I remember the day I was in Africa. I said, okay, we're going to go in America. I don't think I'm asleep. I was happy. I was happy. I said, what time? What time? Anything I can cook. Trenton is not for America. Trenton is people, some people smoke, people drunk. Cut the onion for me.
Oh my God. Oh no. Where?
If people want to talk to me, I can answer, but it's not easy for me to talk to people. I guess because I skill people here. I wish I could go back. I don't think here we come here in this country. We was thinking maybe we finish be refugee. Now we're still refugee in this country.
I had met Eugenia by accident. I was taking a class on public housing policy in Trenton, New Jersey, the capital of New Jersey. And I was interested in making a film about the system of social services. I had met Eugenia's caseworker, who told me that Eugenia was his hardest case. I asked why. Yeah, you know, she's from Africa, he said. And I asked if he knew where in Africa Eugenia was from, and he said, yeah, Africa. I knew she hadn't been fully listened to. My professor for that class is a documentary filmmaker. And the first lesson she shared with her students is that in documentary film, you have to listen to your film subjects. Documentary isn't fiction because you don't get to write the script of someone else's truth. It is therefore essential to listen, like we are doing here today. This is what I would call three-dimensional listening, which is what I'm here to talk to you about. Normal conversations only require 2 dimensions, listening and responding. Listening only enough to respond to what you've been told. But what if we filled the silences in our conversations with actively understanding what the other person is trying to say? That's 3D listening. Listening, responding, and understanding. That's 3-dimensional listening. Your conversation becomes 3-dimensional when you privilege the other person's telling of their story over your response to it. Listening to Eugenia wasn't the first time I thought about 3D listening. When I was 18, I took a gap year to live and work in Varanasi, India, supported by a scholarship from the Princeton University Bridge Year program. When I arrived in Varanasi, I was placed to work at a nonprofit organization called Guria, which in Hindi means doll. The organization is dedicated to fighting human trafficking through legal and educational intervention. And that's where the name comes in. It's a pun. It's both an affectionate term to refer to women and girls, and it's also an example of the stereotype they're trying to fight, that women are beautiful, but also disposable. The founder of the organization, his name is Ajit Singh, and he's the man who taught me how to listen, and he taught me by example. Ajit, when explaining the problem of human trafficking in his city and in the country of India, he first told me about statistics, how the Indian government estimates that 3 million women and children are trafficked and forced into domestic work and prostitution. And as official estimates often are, it's probably too low. But then Ajit taught me to think beyond the statistics, and instead in terms of human potential. Leonardo da Vinci never saw a Mona Lisa before he painted it. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. never heard an I Have a Dream speech before he wrote it. And we haven't seen a world without human trafficking because, well, maybe we haven't done enough to fight it, to make this world a more peaceful and more tolerant place. And maybe, I posit, that's because we haven't been listening. Ajit explained to me how listening had transformed his line of work. At age 17, he had heard about the problem of human trafficking, and in his city, he decided to fight it. But he knew that he would have to start with listening because he didn't know anything, really, about the problem. So he started humbly. He went to the red light district and sat under a tree. Literally, he sat under a tree. And he waited for students who might need help with their homework. When he started talking to the students and getting to know them, he asked them about the kind of services that they were looking for. Because trust me, there are a lot of NGOs in India, and a lot of them are trying to fight prostitution and human trafficking. He learned that the students would tell him, "Sir, we don't need English class. We'd like an art class because we don't have any outlet for creative expression, certainly not at school and definitely not at home." Ajit listened to them, and most of Guria's programs come organically from the people that he works with. This is the potential of three-dimensional listening, not only transforming how we relate to each other as humans, but also how we relate to each other's problems and how we relate to solving them. Ajit is so loved by his community, and that's because he listens to them before he acts, before he tries to act in service. So, I was really inspired by Ajit and his partner Manju and their whole team. And my friend Shayna, who had also been a volunteer with him, we decided to make a film because we knew that our words weren't going to do him justice. And we knew that through the lens of a camera, they could tell their own story. And it looked like this.
मम्मी पापा दोनों अच्छे हैं। वो अच्छा काम करते हैं कि गुंडों को मारकर भगा देते हैं और लड़की को लेकर आ जाते हैं घर और पैसे दे देते हैं और गुंडे लोग उन्हें खाना पीना कुछ भी नहीं देते, कुछ भी नहीं देते, सिर्फ काम कराते हैं, मारते हैं और बांध कर रखते हैं।
যদি তোরে ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো রে যদি তোরে ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে
I told you before you become a doctor or engineer or anything, you have to become a proper human being. You see, the whole definition of life must be clear to you. I'm taking them through that journey. And art in any form is one of the means to reach to that goal of self-realization. The realization of the fact that you are nothing more than the speck of dust.
This lesson of listening, this microphone trick, as we'll call it, because when you attach a microphone to someone else, like this, it picks up all the voices in the room. And so as a documentary filmmaker, you learn that once you ask your question, you don't talk anymore. Filmmakers barely breathe because of this technical part of film, because you don't want to distort the sound quality, but you also want to emotionally indicate that you are fully listening, right? Because the microphone, it can pick up that you're responding, but it's not going to pick up that you're understanding. So I tried this microphone trick of avoiding the urge to respond and instead cultivating the urge to listen, the urge to understand in my everyday life. I found that I could more easily understand when a friend was upset, or when I had done something wrong, or when I could be of support, or when I needed support myself. Because listening is not just done with our ears. Listening is with our ears and our eyes and our hearts. Our film, Specks of Dust, was supported by an organization called the Dalai Lama Fellows, which is directly authorized by His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. And I was given a chance to meet him at his home in exile in Dharamshala, India. I believe His Holiness is the world's greatest listener. And this is the advice that he shared with us. He said, "Live your life as if no one is a stranger. I've never met a stranger," he says. This is the potential of three-dimensional listening, of turning strangers into friends. Imagine if we more actively tried to understand what other people were saying around us. We would more immediately and more deeply know each other and ourselves. Three-dimensional listening is not easy because as humans, we like talking when we hear something. We want to share about ourselves when we hear something about someone else. When someone shares their favorite food, you want to tell them yours. When your roommates had a terrible day, you'll immediately start complaining too. This is entirely human, and it is also inherently selfish. We are, on an everyday, every moment basis, not fully listening to each other. But we could if we tried 3D listening. So I will share a few tactics for 3D listening that I've learned from microphones and also just from experience. 1, turn your body so that your heart faces the person you're trying to talk to. It not only indicates your full attention, but also your full presence. 2, count 10 full seconds after someone stops talking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's a long time, and I bet you've all thought of something brilliant. Because if you give someone the silence that they need to regroup their thoughts, they really do often say something brilliant. And 3rd, repeat what they've said exactly as they've said it in your head. Come to know the other person's story through their words, not through yours. So, even though three-dimensional listening isn't easy, I can say that in my work doing documentary film, I've experienced that too. When I was filming Refugee and listening to Eugenia talk about her story, I so often wanted to interrupt her and ask for clarification of something. And when filming Specks of Dust, listening to the survivors of human trafficking tell me their stories, I was really worried about what my next question should be so I could get all the information and fact check it like a good journalist. But what I realized is, as I was thinking so hard about the perfect next thing to say, I had wasted my precious listening. So today, is the day for you to attach your microphones to the world around you. Because this world is big, and it has a lot of true and untold stories that are really, really interesting, and they're all around you. It is not my hope that you remember my story, or even how I told it. It is my hope that you remember what it made you feel like to truly listen. So if we all start cultivating this urge to listen and this urge to understand, then we might understand each other better. And maybe we'll see a world without human trafficking, who knows? So go out into the world and listen, listen, listen like a microphone. You never know what you might hear. Thank you.